So you've made it this far, and we're going to start jumping into kind of officially looking at these major world religious traditions of Hinduism, Buddhism, and then the Abrahamic faiths, rooted in the Hebrew scriptures and expressed as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The first half here is dealing with Hinduism and Buddhism, and then some into Chinese religion. Hinduism I introduce as kind of Hinduisms, and I'll talk more about that in that lecture there inside the unit. But I want to say, to start off, it is very challenging from a Western mindset. It's a very different way of thinking of the world. It's a very ancient approach, ancient way of thinking, in a sort of polytheistic, classical polytheistic way. There's no kind of founding story, no kind of founding person. There's no Buddha, no Jesus. There's no story of the God who created and called Abraham and raised up his family, and then the chosen people and the deliverer Moses and the prophets. And there's none of that. There are stories, there are myths, there are gods who come into the world as a person. But it's a much older, less kind of, how shall I say it, categorized in a sense. We looked at before the sense of the supernatural, the natural, and the preternatural. When we talked about demons, Hinduism really blurs those lines because there's this tremendous plurality, thousands and thousands and thousands of gods on the one side, but then on the flip side, from a different perspective, everything is one thing. So you have these just tremendous diversity and variety of expressions, of rituals, of gods and goddesses, of practices and stories about them. You have varying creation stories. So, so it can be harder to follow. I mean, there's just this huge stack of literature, right? And it's not all interconnected in an organized fashion. It's just all kind of cataloged and kept and held on to. And some take more precedent at certain periods of Hindu history and others. But even that, it's not just kind of, we'll talk about those kind of clear historical periods. But at the same time, you find overlap and continuation of things from one period working out in another period. It's really just, it's not like most of us who have had a religious upbringing might expect, at least on the historical level. It's a very ancient religion. From a Hindu perspective, they say it's the oldest religion. I would say that in some sense it captures kind of some of the older parts of Hinduism seem to capture similar practices to other ancient polytheistic faiths. But there is this kind of monism behind it. Everything is one thing that we will talk about. So without much more, we'll kind of jump into this look at Hinduism and then move on into Buddhism before we have our midterm in several weeks coming up here. So thanks.